The kingdom of Eloria stretched across many star systems, its shining towers and great fleets symbols of peace and order in the galaxy. Queen Seraphina ruled with wisdom, and her daughter, Princess Illyria, was loved by the people. The young princess was known not only for her beauty but also for her kindness, for she often visited the common folk and spoke to them as if they were family. The people believed nothing could harm her, not within the safety of the great Aelorian Empire. But one night, everything changed. In the deep black of space, a raider fleet appeared from hidden wormholes. These were not ordinary pirates, but members of a hostile faction known as the Crintor. They were ruthless, armed with strange weapons and technology designed to break through Aelorian defenses. Their ships slipped past patrol lines and descended upon the royal cruiser where Princess Illyria was traveling on her way back from a distant colony. The alarms blared, echoing across the halls of the cruiser. Guards rushed to protect the princess, forming a shield around her. "Stay behind us, Your Highness," one of them shouted as doors sealed and weapons charged. The Crintor were relentless. Their boarding ships latched onto the cruiser like metal insects, cutting through steel doors. Fire and smoke filled the corridors as alien warriors stormed in. Their voices were harsh, their eyes glowing with a strange red light. The Aelorian guards fought bravely, but the enemy's numbers were too great. Princess Illyria stood frozen as chaos unfolded around her. She had always believed her mother's empire was unshakable, that no enemy could break through. Now, she saw her protectors fall one by one, and fear gripped her heart. "Run, Princess!" shouted Captain Ren, the leader of her guard. He tried to push her into an escape pod, but before she could enter, a blast shook the ship. The pod systems failed, sparks flying. The raiders advanced, knocking aside the last of the guards. Within moments, the Crintor seized her. She cried out, but their armored hands held her firm. The Princess of Eloria, their leader hissed, "The galaxy will tremble when they learn she is ours." And then, as quickly as they had come, they were gone, retreating into the void with their prize. When news reached the capital, Queen Seraphina's heart shattered. The great halls of the palace filled with silence, the council too afraid to speak. The people of Eloria wept in the streets, holding candles and praying for their princess's safe return. Across the galaxy, whispers spread. Some said the princess would never return. Others claimed the Crintor would demand impossible ransoms. The empire trembled, for without hope, even the strongest kingdoms could fall. Far away, at a remote border outpost, a human soldier named Marcus Hale listened to the broadcast. He stood alone, staring at the holographic news feed. The image of the princess being dragged away burned into his mind. Marcus was not Aelorian. He was human, from Earth, a planet that had only recently joined the galactic community. Many still saw humans as primitive, their technology far behind the great empires. But Marcus had served with honor in the interstellar peace corps, and he had seen war. He clenched his fists. He knew how the Crintor operated. They believed in breaking spirits. They would not simply demand money. They would humiliate the empire by parading the princess as a trophy dot in the command room. Officers argued. "We cannot risk a direct attack," one said. "Our fleets are stretched thin." Besides, another added, "the Crinors' base is hidden. We don't even know where they've taken her." Marcus stepped forward. His voice was calm but firm. "I'll find her." The room fell silent. The officers turned, some with disbelief, others with anger. "You, a human?" One of them sneered. "This is not your fight." Marcus did not flinch. "Maybe not, but I can track them. I've studied their tactics, and I don't need a fleet. I only need a chance." The senior commander shook his head. "You're asking for a death sentence. No one has ever returned from a Crintor fortress." Marcus met his gaze. "Then I'll be the first." For a long moment, no one spoke. Finally, the commander sighed. "Very well. If you wish to throw your life away, I will not stop you. But understand this: no one will come after you." Marcus nodded. He did not expect anyone to. That night, Marcus prepared his small craft. It was nothing compared to the massive ships of the Aelorian fleet, but it was fast, quiet, and perfect for infiltration. He checked his weapon's simple human designs. Not as elegant as alien technology, but reliable. A knife, a pulse rifle, and a set of tools he had modified himself. As he strapped into the pilot's seat, he whispered to himself, "Hold on, Princess. I'm coming." Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Princess Illyra sat in a cold dim cell aboard the Crooner's fortress ship. Chains of strange energy bound her wrists, glowing whenever she tried to move too far. The walls hummed with power, and the air smelled of metal and smoke. She thought of her mother, of her home, of the countless faces of her people who looked up to her. Tears welled in her eyes, but she forced herself not to cry. "I must be strong," she whispered. "I must not give them the satisfaction." The door hissed open, and the Crintor leader entered. His armor gleamed, and his voice rumbled like thunder. "Your empire is weak, Princess. They will not save you. Soon, all will see that the great Queen Serafina cannot protect even her own child." Illyra lifted her chin, her voice steady despite the fear in her heart. "My mother will never stop fighting for me." The leader laughed. "We shall see." As the door closed again, Illyra felt the cold settle deeper. She prayed silently, not knowing that, far away, a single human soldier had already begun the impossible journey to reach her. Marcus charted his course, following faint energy trails left by the raider ships. It was dangerous, for the Crintor often laid traps to mislead pursuers. But Marcus trusted his instincts. He had tracked enemies before on Earth, through jungles and deserts. Space was no different. It only required patience. For days, he followed the faint signs. Every time he thought he had lost them, he found another clue, a distorted signal, a broken satellite, a trace of energy in the dark void. Piece by piece, he built their path finally. His scanner detected something unusual, a hidden cluster of asteroids with strange energy readings. He slowed his ship, his eyes narrowing. "That's it," he muttered. The fortress of the Crintor lay within. Part 1 ends with Marcus staring at the distant glow of the enemy base. The odds are against him. He is only one man, one human among countless alien warriors. But he does not turn back, because somewhere inside that fortress, a princess waits. And Marcus Hale has promised himself she will not be alone. Marcus Hale's ship drifted silently through the shadows of the asteroid cluster. The Crintor fortress stood hidden inside the rocks, built like a great beast curled within its nest. Its surface bristled with towers and cannons, glowing with red energy lines that pulsed like veins. Any normal fleet would be destroyed before even reaching the gates. But Marcus was not a fleet. He was just one man with one small ship. He studied the fortress carefully. Automated turrets scanned space in wide arcs, and patrol ships circled in precise patterns. It was a cage made to trap the reckless. Marcus leaned back in his seat, rubbing his chin. "You've built this for soldiers who rely on numbers," he whispered. "But you've never faced me." He shut down most of his ship's systems, drifting like debris through the asteroid field. The patrol sensor swept past, ignoring what looked like nothing more than space junk. When he was close enough, he fired a small grappling harpoon into one of the outer towers, anchoring his ship to its shadow. "Now the real work begins," Marcus muttered. He slipped into his armor's simple human combat gear, patched and worn but light enough for stealth, strapping his knife, pulse rifle, and a small pack of tools onto his back. He stepped into the airlock. With a hiss, the door opened to the silent void. Using magnetic boots, Marcus climbed along the tower's surface like a shadow. He found a maintenance hatch and pried it open with his knife. Inside, wires sparked and circuits glowed. He crawled through narrow passages, following the faint hum of energy deeper into the fortress. Inside the Crintor stronghold, life was harsh and cold. The alien warriors moved through steel corridors lit by red lights, their heavy armor clanking as they marched. None of them expected an intruder. Why would they? Their enemies were too afraid to come here. Marcus moved silently, pressing himself against walls, slipping past guards with careful timing. His human instincts honed in battles on Earth told him when to move and when to wait. Where advanced alien soldiers might trust sensors and data, Marcus trusted the rhythm of footsteps. The flicker of lights, the smell of burned metal dot at one junction. He saw a group of guards talking. He waited until they left, then placed a small device on the wall. It was a crude human invention, little more than a spark grenade. When the guards returned minutes later, the device crackled and burst, filling the air with smoke and sparks. The aliens shouted in confusion, their sensors blinded. Marcus slipped past, unseen. Meanwhile, Princess Alira sat in her cell, still bound by glowing chains. She had not eaten in days, and her strength was fading. She whispered prayers to the stars, begging for a miracle. Then she heard something, a faint noise, like metal scraping against metal. Her eyes widened. At first she thought it was just her imagination. But then, the cell door clicked. Slowly, it opened a crack. A figure slipped inside, crouched low and moving carefully. It was not a Krentor soldier. His armor was different, darker, smaller. Alira's voice trembled. Who are you? Marcus raised a finger to his lips. Quiet. I'm here to get you out. Alira blinked, unsure if she should trust him. But you're not Elorian. Marcus gave a faint smile. No, I'm human. Name's Marcus Hale. Doesn't matter where I'm from. What matters is we don't have much time. He pulled a small tool from his pack and worked on the glowing chains. Sparks flew as the device hummed. Within seconds, the bonds flickered and died, leaving Alira free. She rubbed her wrists, staring at him in disbelief. One man alone. You came all this way. Marcus nodded, keeping his voice calm. I don't need an army. I just need you to follow me. For a moment, Alira's doubts showed in her eyes. How could a single human hope to defeat the mighty Krentor? But when she looked closer at him, she saw no fear. His eyes were steady, his hands sure. She realized he believed in what he was doing, and somehow that gave her hope too. I will follow, she whispered. The escape began. Marcus led her through narrow maintenance tunnels, always moving when the noise of the fortress masked their steps. Twice they had to hide as guards passed, the sound of heavy boots shaking the walls. Marcus kept his rifle ready, but he avoided fighting when he could. He knew every bullet fired would bring more enemies. At one point, they reached a wide hall with cameras watching every angle. Marcus studied the machines, then pulled a small metal sphere from his pack. He pressed a button, and the device began to buzz softly. He rolled it across the floor. The cameras sparked and shut down one by one, blinded by the human-made disruption field. It was not advanced technology. In fact, it was old and messy compared to alien devices. But that was exactly why it worked. The Krentor had never designed their defenses against such crude tricks. Alira whispered, amazed. Your tools. They are simple, yet clever. Marcus shrugged. Human way. We don't always have the best tech, so we make do with what we have. They kept moving. Soon, alarms began to sound. Somehow, the Krentor realized something was wrong. Red lights flashed, and a voice boomed across the fortress. Intruders detected. Lock all sections. Alira's heart raced. They know. Marcus grabbed her hand firmly. Doesn't matter. We're already ahead of them. They ran through corridors. As doors began to slam shut, Marcus used his rifle to blast open panels, forcing the systems to freeze. In the chaos, alien guards appeared, weapons raised. Marcus shoved Alira behind cover. Stay down. He barked. He popped up, firing quick bursts from his rifle. His shots were precise, never wasted. 2 guards fell, and the others ducked behind. Alira watched in awe. This was no reckless fighter. Marcus fought with patience and skill, every move controlled. He was not stronger than the Krentor, but he was faster, sharper, more determined. When the last guard fell, Marcus turned to her. Come on, we're close, finally. They reached a hangar bay. Dozens of small ships rested there, guarded by only a few soldiers. In the confusion, Marcus pointed to one. That shuttle small enough to escape detection. They sprinted across the floor. Guards shouted. Raising weapons, Marcus fired back, leading Alira up the ramp of the shuttle. He slammed his hand on the controls, and the engines roared to life. As the ship lifted, enemy blasts struck its hull. Marcus pulled the controls hard, weaving through laser fire. The hangar doors opened, revealing the black void of space. With a sharp burst, the shuttle shot out into freedom. Alira sat in the seat beside him, trembling. We escaped. We actually escaped. Marcus kept his eyes on the stars ahead. Not yet. They'll come after us. We need to stay ahead. She turned to him, her eyes wide with wonder. You risked everything. Why? Marcus glanced at her. For a moment, he was silent. Then he said, simply, because no one deserves to be left behind. Not even a princess. Alira felt tears in her eyes. But this time they were not only from fear. For the first time since her capture, she felt truly safe. And as the shuttle vanished into the endless night, Marcus knew the hardest part was still to come. The Centaur would never let them go so easily. The shuttle rattled as it tore through the asteroid field, weaving between massive rocks that floated silently in the black void. Princess Alira gripped the seat tightly, her heart racing. Every explosion, every jolt, made her think the ship would fall apart. Marcus sat at the controls, calm but focused. His hands moved quickly, pulling levers, adjusting thrusters, guiding the shuttle with instinct. Sweat glistened on his forehead, but his eyes stayed sharp. Behind them, the Centaur fortress roared to life. Sirens blared across the base, and dozens of raider ships launched into space. Red lights streaked across the darkness as enemy fighters locked onto their trail. There they are, Alira cried, pointing at the screen where red dots multiplied. Marcus gave a quick nod. I see them. Hold on tight. The first barrage of fire came like a storm. Beams of energy sliced past the shuttle, one hitting close enough to send sparks across the cockpit. Alira gasped, covering her head, but Marcus twisted the shuttle sharply, spinning through the asteroids. The enemy shot struck the rocks instead, shattering them into clouds of debris. You can't fight them all, Alira said breathlessly. Not planning to, Marcus replied. But I can make them work for it. He darted into a narrow gap between two spinning asteroids. The shuttle scraped dangerously close to the surface, but the pursuing ships hesitated. One raider tried to follow and smashed into the rock, bursting into flames. Alira's eyes widened. You flew us through there on purpose. Marcus allowed himself a small grin. Sometimes the best weapon isn't firepower, it's nerve. The chase grew more intense. The raiders fired in coordinated waves, trying to trap the shuttle in a crossfire. Marcus rolled the ship sharply, dodging blasts by mere meters. His movements were not based on computer calculations or advanced targeting systems. He flew by instinct, feeling the rhythm of the battle like a dance. On Earth, he had flown old fighter jets, machines that demanded skill more than technology. That training now gave him an edge. The raiders grew frustrated. Their ships were faster and stronger, but they were trained to fight predictable enemies. Marcus was anything but predictable. Still, their numbers were overwhelming. We can't keep running forever, Alira said, clutching the side of her seat. Marcus checked the scanner. I know. We need to even the odds. Ahead, a cluster of asteroids rotated round each other, creating a deadly maze. Marcus steered toward it. Alira gasped. That's suicide. Not if we're smart, Marcus said. They dove into the spinning field. Asteroids collided, breaking into smaller fragments. The shuttle twisted and turned, barely slipping through gaps that seemed to narrow. Enemy fighters tried to follow but crashed into rocks or blasted each other by mistake. Explosions lit the dark like firecrackers. Alira held her breath with every close call. Her stomach twisted, but her eyes never left Marcus. He was calm, almost steady, as if this chaos was familiar to him. How do you do this? She asked, her voice trembling. Marcus kept his eyes forward. Back home, flying was never easy. We learned to fight storms, to dodge mountains, to trust our instincts. Space isn't much different, it's just bigger. After several tense minutes, they broke free of the asteroid maze. Only 5 raider ships remained on their trail, but they were closing in fast. Marcus frowned. Too many to shake off. We'll have to stand our ground. Alira looked at him with fear. Stand our ground? Against them? Marcus checked the shuttle's weapon systems. They were weak compared to enemy ships. But they had one advantage: surprise. He angled the ship, slowing down just enough to let the pursuers close in. The raiders, thinking the shuttle was damaged, rushed forward eagerly. Marcus waited until they were almost on top of him. Then he spun the ship around and fired all cannons. At once, the sudden counterattack caught them off guard. The raiders exploded instantly. The others scrambled to avoid fire, but Marcus kept pressing, firing with precision. One more fell in flames. The remaining two fired back furiously. Energy. Blast shook the shuttle, warning lights flashing across the cockpit. Alira grabbed Marcus's arm. We're hit. Marcus gritted his teeth. Not enough to stop us. He pulled hard on the controls, dragging the shuttle upward into a steep climb. The last two raiders followed, firing nonstop. At the peak of the climb, Marcus cut the engines. The shuttle stalled, drifting like dead metal. The raiders, not expecting the sudden stop, overshot the shuttle and flew ahead. Marcus reignited the engines, diving down behind them. Now it's our turn. He fired one last volley. Both enemy ships exploded in bright flashes, their wreckage scattering into space. The cockpit fell silent except for the hum of the engines. Alira leaned back, breathing heavily. You destroyed them all. Marcus gave a slow nod. For now. But they'll send more once they track us again. We need to disappear before that happens. He checked the navigation screen. The shuttle's fuel reserves were low, and the damage from the battle made it risky to travel far. He spotted a nebula. Nearby, a cloud of gas and dust that could hide them from scanners. That's our best chance, he said, pointing. We'll hide there until things calm down. Alira looked at the swirling colors on the screen, unsure. Is it safe? Marcus gave a small smile. Not safe, just safer than staying out here. They entered the nebula, the shuttle vanishing into glowing clouds of blue and purple. Static filled the sensors, blinding both their ship and any pursuers. The light outside flickered like fire dancing across water. Inside the quiet, Alira finally allowed herself to breathe. Her hands trembled from the battle. She turned to Marcus. You fought like no one I've ever seen. Our best pilots would not dare fly the way you did. Marcus shrugged, still focused on the controls. I'm not the best pilot. I just refuse to quit. Alira's eyes softened. You risked your life for me, even when the odds were impossible. Why? For a moment, Marcus did not answer. His gaze stayed on the nebula, his jaw tight. Finally, he said quietly, because where I come from, we don't abandon people. If there's even a small chance to save someone, we take it. That's the human way. Alira felt her chest tighten. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not as a princess, not as royalty, but simply as a person worth saving. She whispered, Then I am glad you came. Marcus glanced at her, offering a faint smile. Me too. The shuttle drifted deeper into the nebula, hidden from the outside world. For now, they were safe. But Marcus knew the Crintor would not stop hunting. The real journey was only beginning. Princess Alira sat quietly beside him, her eyes still, shining with fear, but also with something new: trust. For the first time since her capture, she felt that maybe, just maybe, they had a chance, and Marcus Hale, a lone human soldier, silently promised himself he would not fail her. The shuttle floated quietly inside the glowing nebula. Outside the windows, streams of blue and purple gas shimmered like rivers of light. For a moment, it almost felt peaceful. Princess Alira sat in the co-pilot's chair, her hands folded in her lap. Her golden robes were torn and dirty, and her face carried the weight of fear and exhaustion. But as she looked at the colors outside, she felt a small spark of hope. Marcus Hale, sitting at the controls, was busy checking the shuttle's systems. Warning lights blinked across the panel. Fuel was low, the engines were unstable, and the shields were weak. He frowned but kept his voice steady. We bought ourselves time, he said. But the ship won't last forever. We need repairs and supplies. Alira turned to him, her voice soft. Do you know where we can find them? Marcus nodded slowly. There are old outposts scattered near this nebula, abandoned during past wars. If we're lucky, one might still have what we need. Alira studied him. His face was calm, but she could see the fatigue in his eyes. He hadn't slept since the rescue, yet he kept going, carrying the weight of both their lives. You speak as if you've done this many times, she said quietly. Marcus gave a small smile. Survival, yeah, on Earth, sometimes that's all we had. Hours passed as they drifted deeper into the nebula. Alira finally leaned back, her eyelids heavy. The stress of captivity. An escape weighed on her. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Wake me if danger comes." Marcus glanced at her. For the first time, she seemed less like a princess of a great empire and more like a tired young woman who needed rest. He adjusted the controls to a steady course and let her sleep. When Alira woke, the shuttle was shaking. Red lights blinked. Again, she sat up quickly. What is happening? Marcus kept his hands firm on the controls. Nebula storm. Particles are hitting the hull. Nothing we can't handle, but it'll slow us down. The ship rattled harder. Sparks flew from a panel. Alira gasped, gripping the chair. Marcus grabbed a toolkit and began working quickly. His hands moved with practiced speed, connecting wires, tightening bolts, calming the ship like a doctor healing a patient. Finally, the shaking slowed. The warning lights dimmed. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow. There, that should hold. Alira looked at him in awe. You fix ships, fight battles, fly like no one I've ever seen. Do humans train for all of this? Marcus chuckled softly. Not really. We just learn to adapt. Back home, if something breaks, you fix it with what you have. If the odds are bad, you keep fighting anyway. We don't give up easy. Alira's eyes softened. Then perhaps that is why you succeeded where others failed later. They found an old station hidden within the nebula. It was broken and dark, its surface scarred from long-forgotten battles. Marcus guided the shuttle into a docking bay. Inside, the station was cold and empty. Dust floated through the air like tiny stars. Alira shivered as they stepped into the silence. Marcus lit a small lamp. Stay close. There might still be working supplies. They searched together, moving through the echoing halls. Marcus pried open crates, finding old energy cells and ration packs. Some were expired, but others were usable. Alira picked up a ration pack curiously. What is this? Human field food, Marcus said. Not tasty, but it keeps you alive. She smiled faintly and tried a bite. Her face wrinkled. This is strange. Marcus laughed, the sound echoing through the empty station. Told you? But better than starving. For a brief moment, the fear and tension faded. In that cold, abandoned place, they shared food and even a little laughter. As they rested, Alira's thoughts grew heavy. She looked at Marcus, her eyes serious. Why did you come for me? You could have stayed safe. You owe nothing to Eloria. Marcus paused before answering. His gaze dropped to the floor. I've seen people abandoned before. I've seen what happens when no one tries. I couldn't let that happen to you. Doesn't matter if you're a princess or a stranger. No one should be left behind. Alira's chest tightened. She thought of her mother, the queen, who must be grieving back on Eloria. She thought of her people, who looked to her as a symbol of hope. And she thought of Marcus, a man from a world still young among the stars, who had risked everything for her. You are different, she whispered. You see value in every life. Perhaps that is why humans are special. Marcus gave a small smile but said nothing. When they were ready, they left the station and set course for Elorian space. The journey was long, and every moment carried danger. The Krentor were still hunting. Marcus had to chart hidden routes, avoiding major space lanes where enemy scouts might be waiting. One night, as stars drifted slowly past the window, Alira sat quietly beside him. Do you ever feel fear? She asked softly. Marcus thought for a moment. Of course, fear's natural, but I don't let it stop me. On Earth, we say courage isn't about not being afraid. It's about doing what you have to, even when you are afraid. Alira's eyes filled with admiration. I think your courage is greater than any weapon. Days turned into weeks as they crossed dangerous regions. They hit in asteroid belts, skimmed the edges of black holes, and slipped past enemy patrols. Each challenge tested them, but together they found a way. During the long, quiet hours, Alira and Marcus spoke often. She told him stories of her childhood. In the palace, of gardens filled with glowing flowers and songs sung during festivals. Marcus listened with interest, picturing a life so different from his own. In return, Marcus told her of Earth. He spoke of forests and oceans, of cities filled with lights, of storms that shook the sky. Alira listened with wonder. Though Earth was not as advanced as Eloria, she could hear the pride in his voice. You love your home, she said softly. Marcus nodded. It's not perfect, but it's ours. And no matter what, we protect it, just like your people look to you. One evening, as the stars glowed outside, Alira spoke quietly. I feared I would never see my mother again, that I would die in that cell, forgotten. But you gave me back hope. Marcus looked at her, his voice gentle. Hope is the strongest weapon we have. As long as you hold onto it, you're never defeated. Tears welled in Alira's eyes. She turned away quickly, wiping them. Thank you, she whispered. For the first time since her capture, she truly believed she would make it home. Finally, the scanners lit up with signals. Marcus stared at the screen, relief in his voice. We've reached Aelorian space. Alira gasped, leaning forward. The symbols of her mother's fleet glowed brightly across the display. Dozens of ships, shining like guardians of light, filled the space ahead. Her heart leapt. We're almost home. Marcus nodded but stayed cautious. Not yet. They'll need to confirm we're not enemies. Hold on. The shuttle moved closer, hailing signals flashing across the console. Marcus answered calmly, giving his name, and stating the princess was safe. Moments later, the largest ship in the fleet opened its hangar. Marcus guided the shuttle inside. Alira's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, I will see her again, my mother. Marcus glanced at her, giving a small smile. I told you, you're not alone. As the shuttle landed inside the great hangar, soldiers and officers rushed forward. The bay doors opened, and Alira stood at the top of the ramp, her eyes wide with emotion. She was home, and Marcus, standing beside her, knew the hardest part of the journey was over. But he also knew something else. The moment she reunited with her mother would change everything. The hangar of the royal flagship was filled with silence as the shuttle came to rest. Soldiers in shining armor stood in neat rows, their weapons lowered in respect. The great banners of Eloria hung from the high walls, swaying slightly in the air currents of the chamber. Princess Alira sat frozen for a moment, staring at the doors that led deeper into the ship. Her heart beat so fast it almost hurt. She had dreamed of this moment during her darkest days in the Krentor cell. But now that it was here, she could barely believe it. Marcus stood beside her, calm as always. His armor was scratched and scorched from battle, his face tired, but his eyes steady. He glanced at her. Ready? Alira took a deep breath. Yes, I'm ready. Together, they stepped down the ramp. At the far end of the hangar, the great doors opened with a deep rumble. Queen Serafina appeared, walking quickly, her royal gown flowing behind her. Her face was pale, her eyes filled with both hope and fear. She had waited for weeks, not knowing if her daughter was alive or lost forever. When Alira saw her mother, tears filled her eyes. She broke into a run. Mother, she cried. The queen's composure broke. She rushed forward, arms outstretched. They collided in the center of the hangar, mother and daughter holding each other tightly. Alira sobbed against her mother's shoulder. Yes, Mom, I'm safe, thanks to him. She turned her head slightly, pointing back at Marcus. Queen Serafina looked past her daughter at the human soldiers standing silently by the shuttle. She had heard whispers from her officers, rumors that a single human had accomplished what entire fleets could not. Now, seeing him in person, she understood. He looked worn, scarred, but unbroken, a man who had given everything for her daughter's life. The queen tightened her hold on Alira. tears falling freely. My child, my precious child. I thought I had lost you. Alira pulled back slightly, her voice trembling but strong. You did not lose me, mother. Because of him, I am here. All eyes in the hangar turned toward Marcus. Whispers ran through the soldiers and courtiers. Some looked at him with disbelief, others with suspicion. Humans were still seen as newcomers, weak compared to ancient empires. Could it truly be that this one man had saved the princess where countless warriors had failed? The queen slowly approached. Marcus, her daughter still at her side. She stopped before him, studying his face. For a long moment, she said nothing. Marcus bowed his head respectfully. Your Majesty, he said quietly, your daughter is safe. That's all that matters, Seraphina's voice trembled. You risked everything, alone, without aid, against enemies stronger than you. Why would you do this? Marcus lifted his eyes to hers. His voice was steady, simple. Because no one should be left behind. Not her. Not anyone. The hangar was silent. Every soldier, every officer, every court advisor held their breath, waiting for the queen's response. Then, to the shock of all present, Queen Seraphina sank to one knee before Marcus. Her flowing gown spread across the floor as she bowed her head. You are no ordinary soldier, she said softly. You are a guardian of life. You saved not only my daughter, but the hope of this empire. And for that, Eloria will never forget. You, gasps filled the hangar. The Queen of Eloria had knelt to a human, a race many still saw as young and untested. It was an honor beyond measure, a gesture that would echo across the stars. Marcus looked uncomfortable, not used to such recognition. He shook his head. Majesty, I don't need reward. I only did what had to be done. But Alira stepped forward, her eyes shining with gratitude. No, Marcus, you must accept it. Because of you, I live. Because of you, my people still have hope. Your courage deserves to be honored. The queen rose again, holding her daughter close. She turned to the assembled court. Let it be known to all Eloria and to the galaxy beyond that this human Marcus Hale has shown what true strength is. Not the strength of weapons or numbers, but the strength of spirit. From this day forward, he shall be remembered as the one who brought my daughter home. The soldiers raised their weapons in salute, the sound echoing like thunder across the hangar. Marcus stood silently, humbled, his face unreadable. Deep down, he felt relief more than pride. Alira was safe. That was enough. In the days that followed, the stories spread quickly across the stars, everywhere. People spoke of the human soldier who defied the Krentor. Some laughed at first, thinking it a tale too wild to be true. But when the queen herself confirmed it, the galaxy listened. Among humans, pride swelled. For the first time, their kind was seen not as weak newcomers, but as something greater, people who could stand against impossible odds. Among the empires, curiosity grew. If one human could do this, what more were they capable of? Inside the palace, Alira spent long hours with her mother, speaking of her captivity, her rescue, and of Marcus's courage. Every time she told the story, her voice carried the same truth. He never gave up. Even when hope was gone, he gave it back to me. Marcus, meanwhile, remained quiet. He refused great rewards, refused positions of power. When the queen asked him what he desired, he said only a chance to rest. Yet, despite his silence, the people adored him. Wherever he walked in the palace halls, guards saluted, servants bowed, and children whispered his name. One evening, as the sun set over the capital city, Marcus stood on a balcony overlooking the shining towers. Alira came beside him, her long gown trailing softly behind her. For a moment, they watched the golden light together. You changed everything, she said quietly. Marcus shook his head. I just did my duty. Alira turned to him, her eyes bright. No, Marcus, you showed my people something they had forgotten, that true strength comes from the heart. You reminded me that hope can live even in the darkest places. I will never forget that, and I will never forget you. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, then gave a faint smile. And I'll never forget you, princess, for a while. They stood in silence, two souls who had survived together, bound not by blood or crown, but by trust forged in fire. Far across the galaxy, the Centaurs seethed with rage at their defeat. They swore vengeance, but deep down, they had been shaken. The story of a lone human breaking their fortress spread like wildfire. Fear and respect grew in equal measure. And so the galaxy began to change, not because of fleets or empires, not because of mighty weapons, but because one human soldier, Marcus Hale, had proven that courage, compassion, and determination could shape destiny. That night, as the palace bells rang and the city lights glowed, Queen Seraphina held her daughter close once more. Alira whispered, "Yes, Mom, I'm safe, thanks to him," and across the halls. Marcus walked quietly, unnoticed, content. He had kept his promise, and that was enough.